back for another book review brought to you by the Sounds of Construction. So that's great. We're gonna ignore it, but as I mentioned in another video, I don't know which order you're seeing things, but yeah, probably don't have headphones because they are literally like basically outside of my window and are just so loud. So anyways, today we're talking about this one. So this is Get Rooted, Reclaim Your Soul, Serenity, and Sisterhood Through the Healing Medicine of the Grandmothers by Robyn Moreno? Names, I'm great at that. So yeah, anyways, this book. So to start off with, the tagline, the subtitle, not really, actually. So I feel like it should have slightly changed that. Cause I got this one from the library based off of that. So it should have been like reclaiming my soul, serenity, and sisterhood through the healing medicine of my grandmothers, and not making it sound like you should do that. That's not what this book is. It is in fact a memoir. Now you might be thinking, if you especially are new to my channel, why did you not read what the book was about? I don't. I usually go off of titles, and then I will look sometimes when my library will list, because it's not every time, because why would that be a thing? It'll sometimes show like suggested titles that are kind of related, and you know, if you search something, sometimes it'll pull other titles, and this was one of those where I was like, sure. I read the title, I read the subtitle, and I was like, cool. And so I didn't know that this was just a memoir, and that is all this is. Surprisingly, I gave this one a 4 out of 5 star. It was an interesting read, but a lot of the book I was sitting here feeling extremely awkward and just kind of an outsider. So this book, while very interesting, I am not the community for it. So this book is heavily aimed, and I didn't know this was a thing. I haven't stumbled across this anywhere else, so I could be wrong. But apparently, what we call the Aztecs and like kind of Central America, a lot of Mexico, is called in ancient times Mexica. Instead of an O, it's an A. So I've never heard it that way, so I don't know exactly. Just kind of briefly mentioned a little bit. So we're just gonna roll with what she calls it, which is Mexica. And it is about that culture. Now there's a word in here that she calls it, I suck at pronouncing other languages, so I'm not gonna do it. But it starts with a C, and it's their variation of kind of an indigenous belief system. It kind of sounded like, again, I don't know anything about this at all, and it was kind of described, but like kind of not. It's one of those things where it's like, again, outsider, I don't know anything. So I don't know if it's very common if you are like of Mexican descent, or you're from Mexico, or your family's from Mexico, or you have a lot of Mexican friends. Like if you're very surrounded in that culture, and I don't know if it's just Mexico. Is it the other countries nearby? I don't know. Because there's like a lot of things from like that general region, you know, like Mexico, Venezuela. Like I've met a lot of people from there. Some of the things overlap beautifully, and then sometimes you're like, what? Like the random stuff that you're like, I did not know that. Like, because my husband, he has a coworker who's from Venezuela, and she's learning English, he's learning Spanish, so they have some Spanglish going on, and like the culture is like very different than what we expect, and yet simultaneously like it's the most hilarious thing to just like, it's fun. I love learning about other cultures. So all of that to say, I don't know exactly where in the world this practice system thing comes from, if it's indigenous or if it's kind of more like the hoodoo voodoo communities in kind of more of the South in the US, where it's like a hodgepodge mix match, and it's yet also been handed down from so many generations and changed and developed and all of that. It kind of sounded like that, but yeah, it kind of explains it ish. But basically this is her learning a culture from her heritage, and is also huge into being like, the colonizers sucked, and you're like, yes, but also all of our ancestors sucked. Like truly, all of them were assholes. Warring tribes across the globe. Everywhere, every single place, always were fighting. But yeah, so there's a lot of this thing of like, stick with your own, and also fuck the colonizers. And you're like, cool, I don't feel like my complexion is welcomed here. That's cool. I just don't know that I am supposed to be in here. So I'm gonna read this and then run because I don't think I'm welcomed. And it's just one of those things where like, maybe that's not the intention, but that's the way it kind of comes across, and like that's cool, that's awesome. I will know my place and just like step out and be like, cool, you do your thing, I'm gonna not invade your space. And so that was kind of a constant theme in this book, but then also like there's a lot of like kind of this, it's a thing that happens a lot in the spiritual communities of privileged wifey gets to go on her grand exploration that a lot of us common folks can't do. And that was the thing, because she was able to like turn down really well-paying jobs, run away from her life to go on this soul-searching thing for, I think she said it was like 260 days or something like that, and go off and do her thing. And I'm like, that okay, sure. Like that's, I don't understand how people have that kind of money. And so it's also a little alienating on that front to be like, how are you easily affording this stuff? But okay, so it goes through her story of realizing that she's overworking and is an alcoholic who's kind of in denial for a while. And then also she is just learning her culture, trying to become, again, this name that I can't pronounce, but it's the equivalent of like a healer of sorts, but again, for the Mexica practices of sorts. And I don't know, it was just, I was intrigued by the stories. A lot of it really kind of overlaps into other branches of paganism, where it's like, oh yeah, we kind of do that too. Some of it, not all of it, different ways, different things, but like a core thing was like, it goes through the elements, and you're like, oh, look at the elements, they're showing up everywhere. And like, you know, there's just little practices that you're like, you can see a common thread throughout the globe. Humans tend to do kind of the same thing. So we got to learn a lot of different things that were like, again, the specifics are to the culture, but the general vibe is kind of across the globe. You know, we love to use plants to help with things, teas, visualizations, stiffs, meditation, you know, all that jazz. The thing with this is it really makes you love the culture. Again, acknowledging that like when I'm done with this book, I am not welcomed there. But for the people who are, it sounds like a very tight-knit community, which is awesome. Because like as I was reading this, I was getting bombarded with the Norse dudes of awful. And so I was like, oh, why can't we have that? Like this community sounds awesome. Like there are like the rituals and things that you do sound amazing. Again, not gonna say the names because I'm gonna mispronounce all of them. I sucked. I took 2 years of Spanish. I still can't say the words. So like, and let alone, they're probably old words. They might have different pronunciations. I don't know. But like the culture and like the community of it sounds amazing. Like so tight knit, you can rely on so many people, and just the whole thing was so cool. So like I was left feeling like, oh my god, that's so cool. But then also being like, yeah, I feel like you gotta get invited in though. Whew. And I don't know that that's gonna happen a lot to, again, people of my complexion. But if you have that heritage, oh my god, this is a good book for you. Like if you are, and I guess that's kind of our recommended audience, if you are like Mexican or Latin American and you have, whether you were born there or not, or your family's just from there, and you're seeking some just kind of memoir, spiritual discussions of that culture, this is fantastic. However, again, okay, if you're white, I don't know that you're really welcomed into this space. Just put it bluntly. Like, it's fine. Sometimes you don't have to be in every single spot. That's cool. And, you know, reading through it, even though I'm like, nope, like I don't really feel welcomed here, which is, again, fine. We don't have to be in every single space ever. I kind of come back to the things like Dalai Lama has said of like, we're part of the human family, but not everyone follows that. So I acknowledge my space and I will not impede in people's bubbles. But like, I do know a lot of people from that area, and like their culture is amazing and it's so fun to learn about. And so like, I feel like those people, again, it's a big branch. I feel like it could be all of Central America, maybe even a few other places in the world. I don't know. But like, there's a lot of really cool cultural things to learn about, and it's a very interesting story to read through. Just, again, I just was constantly left feeling like an awkward outsider as I was reading it. Like, it was intriguing, it gave me inspiration for things, but also I fully acknowledge that, like, I am not who she's talking to. So anyways, I did enjoy this book, but I just personally, I don't know, I felt like I didn't want to step on toes entering into the space too much. Didn't know that's what I was getting into. Again, I don't read what the book's about, I just go off the cover and the title, and I kind of was hoping for something that was not this. I really wasn't thrilled that it was a memoir the whole time, and there are like a couple exercises-ish, but really the most of it's like, well, you gotta go learn from like a specifically trained person for, again, the culture thingy that she talks about that I don't know how to pronounce. But otherwise, I mean, I don't know, it's an interesting read, but yeah, I don't think it was intended for me. So I would love to know your thoughts on this one in the comments down below. Did you get the same vibe? Different? I would just love to know in the comments. As always, a huge thank you to my patrons. If you would like to support me and get access to exclusive content, it's patreon.com/nightwillowcrafts. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I post every single day. And until next time, thank you so much for watching, and blessed be.